Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today's going to be a fun episode with the co-owner of DSD Decoys. I've got Brad Cochran on the line. Brad, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on. I've been pestering Dave for a while now, and he says, "Oh, I'm too shy. I can't come on. Brad would be much better than me." And I'm like, "You're such a turkey, Dave," and he just laughs and says, "Brad will come on." So I'm glad to have you, Brad.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Dave always acts like he gets stage fright, and every time we shoot a video, he does
phenomenal.
Fine.
Yeah, I know. The videos, I really enjoy watching the videos and stuff on your website. Brad, I want to start out by, let's talk a little bit about how Dave Smith Decoys, DSD Decoys, started, and get a little bit of history and kind of, how everything shaped together from, kind of start from the beginning to where we're at now. And I think it makes an interesting story because I think a lot of people don't really know, and they're curious how DSD Decoys got their start.
Sure. So actually, Dave Smith Decoys started long before I was actually involved with Dave as his business partner. It was back in 1998. Dave actually decided to create an ultra-realistic Taverner's Canada Goose decoy, which is more or less a lesser Canada for anybody not from the Northwest. But there were no ultra-realistic goose decoys on the market, and what was available just wasn't really cutting it at that time. And so Dave decided that he would, take a stab at it, and he basically kind of threw all his chips in the one basket, decided to quit his day job and cashed in his 401k and bought a rotational casting machine and a bunch of molds, and away he went. And he did it.
At that point in time, that's when all his family and friends are going, "You're going to do what? You're going to do, you're going all in," which, to make most businesses successful, that's what it takes, and it takes kind of that leap of faith just to go for it. But that's a big step, going from, quote unquote, having a day job to just going all in on, making decoys.
Yeah, especially because it had never been done before. There were decoys available on more of a mass-produced level. And, this was going to require a higher price point than ever before. And so, it was a big risk, for sure. And I wasn't around there in the beginning, but Dave and I met in 2001, I believe, 2000 or 2001, several years after he had made the first decoy, the first DSD. And we hunted together for a few years and did some guiding together. And I was blown away right away by how effective the decoys were. And after the very first time I hunted over them, I just never wanted to hunt over anything else. So after a few years of hunting together, I saw that Dave was doing the decoys on a pretty small scale, basically just out of his garage, and he had a few guys making parts for him, but it was very, very small scale, and it was only the Taverner's Canada Goose line, and there were only 4 body styles at that point. So I don't know, I guess I just saw the potential and never really wanted to have a real job. And so right about the time I finished my degree at Oregon State, I kind of approached Dave about the idea of maybe taking our guide service into a decoy manufacturing business, and he was all for it.
So you guys are goose hunting together. You're guiding goose hunts. You're noticing how effective the decoys that Dave has created, and you are thinking of a bigger picture, so to speak, and saying, man, we should really try and expand this. One question I would have, and it's just a typical business type question, is, did you know it was going to be a sure thing, or did you have some trepidation that, man, I know these decoys work. It's just a matter of, getting them out, to enough people and getting enough people using them. But talk a little bit about the fear at the beginning, from either yours or Dave's perspective, or were you pretty gung-ho thinking that it was going to work?
Well, to be honest with you, Jay, I didn't put a whole lot of thought into it. I had a whole lot of faith in the product, and I hadn't taken the degree of risk that Dave did in the beginning. And I was young and gung-ho, and I never really thought, I guess the idea of the business failing never really crossed my mind. I knew that it would be difficult in the beginning, and it certainly was, and it's not easy by any means even now. But I just always really had a passion for the decoy, the ultra-realistic decoy line.
One question that leads me to, with the 4 body styles that Dave kind of started out with, and forgive me, but I'm not a goose hunter, and I've heard unbelievable things about the decoys, and then obviously you're going to get into the turkey decoys, but with the 4 body styles that he kind of started out with, how much has the brand in the goose decoys branched out as far as different posture, different position? What are some of the things that you and Dave realized that needed to get better on the original setup, or has it been kind of just the cornerstone and then you've just built off of that?
Well, the first thing we knew we needed to expand with was a large body Canada Goose decoy. There's a huge market for a large Canada giant honker, whatever you want to call it. So we decided that the next step would be to come out with a line of similar full bodies and a larger Canada Goose, and I think we came out with 8 different poses in that original honker line, and it took off. I mean, our sales on the honker versus the Taverner, which we now call our lesser, it's probably 10 to 1, and really always has been. There's just a larger market for the honker size decoys, and since then we've expanded the line, the Goose decoy line, to include cacklers, speckle bellies. We've even done some smaller custom runs of some European species like barnacle geese, and we've done some pink foots and some gray lags, and even some brant decoys. So yeah, we've probably got 25 or 30 different models of goose decoys now.
That's incredible. When you guys were hunting on those original goose decoys, and then when you came up with the bigger decoy, what was the feedback, not only from you guys but from customers, and how much do you rely on that customer feedback that you were getting, and how much was it just that you guys knew? Dave has a real good eye of making things exactly how they look, and real authentic. They look just like the real thing. But were there things along the way that customers would continually hear and it would not force you, but it would kind of turn you guys in a direction to either come out with a different type of goose decoy or a different posture or something like that?
Yeah, definitely all of the above. We kind of always joke about us, the fact that we say our first customers are us. We always try to kind of meet our own hunting needs first. And that certainly carried through over the years. We made Dave made the very first goose decoy because there wasn't anything better out there at the time, and it's kind of carried over through our whole goose line. But certainly in the more recent years, I would say, we've had more outside inspiration to branch out into other markets, and the turkey line is a perfect example of that. I had been a turkey hunter for probably 10 or 12 years prior to us actually releasing a turkey decoy. But it wasn't until we got a call from a good friend in Florida, a guy by the name of Shannon Kelly, that he really kind of nudged us into doing a turkey decoy. He kind of opened our eyes to not just the market, but how effective a realistic turkey decoy could be. And sometimes I wonder if we, how long would it have taken if we hadn't been nudged, by Shannon. But I'm really glad that he did, because I tell you, the turkey line has just exploded.
Yeah, and you've got all kinds of different postures and poses and what have you. And talking about those first turkey decoys, the first one that you guys produced, did you know right off the bat that you would have a winner? And you personally, when you were able to take your first turkey decoys into the field, what kind of response did you have? And at what point did you know, okay, yeah, this is going to be good?
Well, I had absolutely no idea how effective the decoy would be. We kind of threw together a few prototypes just in time for the National Wild Turkey Federation show. And when I say threw together a few prototypes, it took many months to actually sculpt the original. I don't want to make it sound like we rushed through that part of it, but we decided kind of at the last minute that we would try to make the National Wild Turkey Federation show, which was in Atlanta that year. If I'm not mistaken, that would have been February of 2008, I believe. And maybe it was 2007. I can't remember. But in any case, we got there, and I remember I just had a stack of flyers and two prototypes of our upright hen decoy. And I had no idea how popular they would be at the show. I got a booth kind of at the last minute, and so we were really on the outskirts of the...
had a horrible booth space, I'm sure.
Yeah, terrible location. And we had initially vendors from, every big name call company and just all the big players in the industry were coming over and kind of oohing and awing at the two display decoys I had, and that was kind of flattering. And then all of a sudden the doors open, and but I didn't have any product on hand at that point, and we literally didn't have any stock back at the shop. We were still building the molds, and so I just started taking orders. And once the once the show opened, people just started flooding into the booth, and I was pretty blown away by just how popular the show was in general. I wasn't expecting there to be tens of thousands of people. You've been there yourself. It's a big show, and those people there, they take their their turkey hunting very seriously.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a show that I love going to, and it's just 50,000 turkey nuts. I mean, the most intense turkey hunters in the country come to that show, and I'm sure they were just drooling all over the decoys, but I see another problem forming. So you guys get there, people are falling all over themselves over the decoys. Now steps another problem, which you wouldn't think would be a problem, but now you're probably talking of too much demand and not enough supply. Initially, how did you guys, or was Dave with you at that first show, was one question, and then, were you like, oh boy, we better ramp this up, and were you able to capitalize and get enough product out there on the market, or I assume it probably took you a couple years to even catch up?
It did. It took us many years to catch up finally. We're still not, I guess, fully caught up, but we're getting better. And to answer your first question, Dave was not at the show. I was by myself that year. And, yeah, the supply was zero, and the demand was through the roof after that show. And I remember calling Dave on my way back to the airport and saying, you better get going on those molds.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, boy, if we could just sell 100 of these things this year, it would be incredible. And I think we ended up selling about 700 that first year of just the hen. And that was all direct. We didn't have any retailers at that point. And, of course, I didn't take the first order until mid-February, so it was a big hit. It was a big hit for us, for sure.
Let's talk about the original construction of the turkey decoys, and then, feel free to branch into the goose decoys if you want to touch on that. But I want to focus primarily on the turkey decoys. One of the things that I absolutely love, one of the things I love about the decoys is how durable they are. Almost every one of them, if not every single one of my decoys, has been shot by, or multiple times by my hunters. If you shake every one of my decoys, they rattle because they've got shotgun pellets in them. And then I've had multiple decoys have been shot by arrows. And one of the things that always strikes me is unbelievable with the decoys is how they're able to take a shot from a shotgun or multiple shots, and you can't even tell they're shot. The only way you can tell is by shaking them, and there's pellets inside. Talk a little bit about the construction, and for me, the durability aspect, keeping them lightweight but keeping them super durable. I mean, we're throwing them in and out of the Rangers, in and out of the back of my pickup, running and gunning with these decoys, and then literally, you can watch my videos and they're just getting blasted. And you by the time you get over to the decoy, you can't even tell it's shot. Talk a little bit about the construction and how important that construction is, how much that construction plays as an integral part of those decoys being such a success.
Yeah, it's huge. It's certainly become a major component, huge advantage of owning and hunting over a DSD is, like you say, you can certainly hit them with errant shot or even a direct shot, shotgun or bow, and it doesn't compromise the shape of the decoy or the surface. The paint bonds very well to it, and because the material we use, which we refer to as ACE technology, which is an acronym for Advanced Crosslink Elastomer, it's so flexible that it actually reseals itself. So a pellet will go through it, and it's more like rubber or foam, I guess you would say, than plastic. Mm-hmm. It just is able to absorb the impact of whatever hits it and appear as though, there was no penetration of the surface whatsoever. But that was
and the other thing, the paint you would think that it would blast the paint off of it. It really doesn't. I mean, you can take my decoys and literally try and find, like where did it get hit, and you're shaking it going, I can't even see where it got shot. Brad, how important do you think it is to have a decoy that can withstand a shot and still have, the integrity of shape and still have great color and look natural? How important do you think that is?
It's extremely important. As you well know, with a good, realistic turkey decoy, most of your shots are taken within very close proximity to the decoy. You've got a bird who's either attacking or displaying for a decoy, and they're typically within 1 or 2 feet, and sometimes they're even on top of your decoy. And the reality is, sometimes no matter how hard we try to avoid hitting the decoy, it just happens. And like you, I have a garage full of decoys that sound like rattle cans. So don't feel bad, because you're not the only one that shoots your decoys.
Most of them get shot by my hunters, and they go, most of my hunters go, did I just hit that decoy? And I look over at them and go, well, I'm not shooting a shotgun. Yes, you just hit my decoy, and then just laugh, because I know that they're going to walk up and they're like, oh, I need to get you a new one. And I'm like, go look at it. You can't even tell that you even shot it. They're like, well, did I hit it? I go, shake it, and they pull it off the stake, and it starts rattling. Cracks me up.
Well, Jay, you're supposed to say, yeah, you do need to buy me a new one.
Yeah, but they see that I've got a whole truckload full. They're like, he's got plenty of them. I want to talk about some of the poses. And the poses for me, and the posture of the body and the head. Who does most of the research as far as either coming up with new poses, or with, I believe, the 8 poses or so that you guys have now? Who's kind of the mastermind behind that?
Dave is the mastermind, and he does 100% of the artwork. And I give him some of my input, and we bounce different ideas off of one another. But in the end, he's the talent.
He's the talent, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, he's the talented one, and he would be too modest to admit that. But so we talk about different ideas for new poses and different color schemes, and that's about it as far as my role goes in product development. I'm not as hands-on as Dave is.
Okay, so from a company position, Dave is kind of the guy that is shaping and molding and the artistic and doing all that. Your role more of the business part of the business, or talk a little bit about your day-to-day and maybe how it's different than what Dave does?
Yeah, my role is definitely more keeping up on things here at the shop. First of all, Dave works off-site. He has a studio at his personal residence. It's actually about 75 miles away from our shop. And I work here at the shop daily. So I was at one point overseeing all of the production. And fortunately for me, before I lost all of my hair, we were able to find Greg Hogan. And he's been on the team now for coming up on 2 years now. And so he's actually taken over as our general manager, and he now oversees the production, which has been great because not only is it stressful, but it's really hard to focus on a lot of the really important components of a business outside of the production. And so we've really grown leaps and bounds since we brought Greg on board, because it's really freed my hands up, on a day-to-day basis. I'm able to do a lot more networking and PR stuff, going to more shows and kind of thinking more in a creative sense, kind of helping steer the ship a little more here at the shop, rather than being so driven and focused on just, trying to keep up with demand all the time.
So in other words, Brad, there was so much demand, and you guys were having to kick out so much product that the day-to-day stuff in getting that out was overwhelming you, where you couldn't do some of the shows and do some of the forward-thinking or forward-looking and trying to deal with future business, because the existing business was so overwhelming that it almost tied your hands, where you couldn't do some of the things that, trying to push the company forward, you couldn't do some of that because of the everyday just trying to get product out the door type of atmosphere. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
And I know there was a couple of years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago, there was a time when you guys actually didn't even come to the NWTF show because you had so much demand, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you absolutely had so much demand that bog down, so to speak, was like, we can't do any more marketing, or we can't do any more shows because we need to keep up with what we have in our existing, orders and such, right?
That's right. And because, we're at DSD, we're unique in the sense that, most decoy companies are, many of them will design a product and then send it overseas. And so once the design work is done, it's out of their hair and they don't touch it. They get to do the really fun stuff like, marketing it and focusing on sales. And we actually have to make the product, and that's very time consuming. So, it's hard to really make forward progress on your orders when you're trying to plan for shows, and you're taking time away from the shops, because, the NWTF show is clear over in Nashville. We're out here in Oregon, and, it's about a 1-week commitment for us in terms of time. And so our productivity would be down during that time, and it's right during the peak of our turkey production season. Right. So it was not an easy decision, but we felt it was the best decision to back out of the show. I think that would have been about in 2015, and we really committed ourselves to delivering our customers' orders in a timely manner.
Yeah, and I remember you even came on the website and, put a statement out about it that, we're not going to be attending the show until we can get, basically get production up and get all existing orders filled. And it was so nice to see you guys back at the show this year at NWTF. And so it's, I've done several podcasts with Jason Harrison. He's with Kuyu. He's a sponsor of this podcast. And we've talked a lot about, some of the growing pains with Kuyu and some of the things that he's gone through, and, trying to do what's best for the company, trying to, service existing orders and what have you, and take care of the existing customers. And, I'm sure you have all those stories too, where you've got a small startup, if you will, and huge demand. And, quite honestly, there's lots of businesses that reach that point where you guys have been and have had a great product and have never been able to pull out of it, so to speak, because they can't make the decisions to, have a general manager to, release some of that control. And I'm sure, you had to spend money to get a general manager, and you had to, give up some of the baby, so to speak, in that, I know in my own business, it's hard sometimes to give up some of that control, but that's always a good sign of if you get the right person, that the company can move forward. I want to branch over and talk a little bit about the Strutter. And, you guys started with the hen decoys, and, man, the Strutter comes on scene, and you can put real, wing feathers on it. You can put real tail fan. For me, for my Gould's turkey hunts, especially down in Mexico, the Strutter has just been a game changer. I mean, it's just an incredible decoy. It spins on its own stake, so when they come in, as all your decoys do, but something about when they come up face to face with that Strutter and they, start hitting it and tapping it and it's spinning around, I mean, those gobblers go nuts. Talk about the success of the Strutter and the feedback that you've gotten from customers.
Okay, yeah. I love the Strutter for my own hunting purposes. It's definitely my favorite of our turkey decoys to use. I don't hunt with it every time I go out. Sometimes if I'm running and gunning and I need to be a little more mobile, I'll use our Jake. But
love the Jake
that
too.
Strutter is just so unmistakable. The visibility of that decoy from clear across an open field, there's no mistaking what it is. And it's really exciting to watch a bird eyeball him, and just come in on a dead run. And that happens all the time with that decoy, especially if you want to incorporate a little motion into it too. Give it that.
We've put them on strings before and been able to spin it and move it back and forth, and it's absolutely a game changer. Talk a little bit about the first Strutter, the first one, your first time out in the field. Do you have any story where it was like, oh, this is going to be even better than we thought? I mean, from the very get-go, was it like immediate response that this is going to be a great decoy?
Yeah, but to be honest with you, I've kind of felt that way about all of our decoys. We released the Jake decoy before the Strutter, and I was instantly blown away by how effective it was. And yeah, so absolutely, I was blown away by the Strutter as well. I like the fact that you can use a mature tail fan or a Jake fan. You get those wings in there too, and I think of all of our decoys, there's not another decoy in our entire line, goose or turkey line, or even our deer that looks more like a real bird.
Yeah, for sure.
Dave just really nailed that pose.
He did nail the pose. Talking about the Jake, I always tell people when they call and say, which DSD decoy do you like the best? I'm like, I like them all. Well, which one do you like the best? I said, well, the Strutter's unbelievable. I said, but probably if I only had, please don't force me to just take one, is what I tell them. But if I had to carry one decoy, hands down, if I had to carry one decoy, I'd carry the Jake. And the Jake, for me, on all my hunts, has been an unbelievable decoy. And, most of the videos, you can see the bird come in. They'll kind of, they'll either eyeball the Strutter and they'll go straight over the Jake and just start beating the Jake, just absolutely whipping his tail and just beating that Jake. And the one thing I really like is it pivots well. It spins well on the stake. And, they start hitting it, and it's almost like the decoy's hitting back, and just an unreal decoy. We had a hunter last year that shot through the Gould's turkey. He's got I don't know if you've seen it, Brad, but the bird has the Jake decoy's beak, like head and beak, in his mouth, and he's just wrestling with it and fighting and going around in a circle, and Lance draws back and shoots him, and it goes through the bird and into the Jake, and he continues to fight at that Jake, and then he pulls, the arrow's now stuck in the Jake decoy, and he pulls out of that. It just had so many stories. Where another story a couple years ago where one of my archery hunters down there for Goulds draws back and shoots the gobbler right kind of in the wattles, and he's pecking and fighting the Jake, and the Jake's spinning and kind of bouncing back on the bird, and blood is literally squirting out of the bird's neck. He's dead on his feet and doesn't even know it, and he's still fighting. And I think it goes back to that pose that Dave came up with. That pose is unbelievable, and it just infuriates those gobblers. I mean, they will not. I mean, they're already shot. They're dead on their feet, and they're still fighting it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of cool stories and experienced a lot of cool hunts with the Jake. That's for sure, and it goes the same with all our turkey decoys. Like you, I like them all. You know, they all serve their own purpose, and I'm really excited for our new mating motion pair.
Oh man,
that's a decoy
I saw it
that
at the
really blew me away the first time I ever hunted over it.
So I got to see it at the show, and Dave was, making it, pulling on the string, and I've got video of birds, doing the exact thing on your mating hen or on the submissive hen, both. Tell the listeners a little bit about it. Tell what made you guys do that, and how much of an impact do you think it's going to have? I mean, this is the first season that this mating motion Jake is going to be out there for the general public. Talk a little bit about what you think it's going to do for people.
Sure. Okay. Well, the inspiration for doing the pair actually came on a hunt a few years back. Dave and I were on a bow hunt together, and we had a nice long beard. He was really henned up, and he was on the other side of a big open field. And no matter what we tried, he just wasn't interested in us whatsoever. There was 200 yards between us and him, and we would call. We went through our whole vest of different calls, and he would hardly even look over in our direction. And it wasn't until a few minutes later when a group of Jakes came in, and we had our submissive hen out, and they kind of sauntered their way over to her, and one of them finally kind of got up the courage to make a move, and next thing you know, he's standing on top of that submissive hen decoy, which for those who don't know is a hen pose that we have. She's actually laying on her belly, ready to accept a gobbler on top of her back. And boy, I tell you, as soon as that long beard from across the field caught sight of that Jake, he came on a dead sprint all the way across the field. And I can't remember if we ended up getting that bird or not, but I know that Dave and I looked at each other after that, and we just said to ourselves, we have got to do that next. That pair, that look of a young gobbler mounting a hen is what infuriated that bird and caused him to run, 200 yards, to meet his maker. And so we've been kicking around the idea of adding an additional pose to our turkey line, and it was real simple at that point. We said, that's such an incredible reaction to get. Let's make it happen as often as we want.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely.
So anyhow, and we'd always wanted to do a motion decoy too, and a lot of customers had asked us to do a motion decoy in our turkey line, and so it made sense. And so what the decoy represents is a young Jake, and he is standing on top of a hen, And like they do in the wild, he's trying to maintain his balance while he literally stands on top of her back, and she's laying on her belly, flat against the ground, and he's just kind of jostling back and forth in a kind of rocking motion while he waits for her to lift her tail. The act of breeding is actually really fast. Most of the time is spent with the gobbler standing on top of the hen, just waiting for several minutes for her to lift her tail. And then the actual act of copulation only takes a matter of 3 or 4 seconds. But in that time, while they're doing their balancing act, there's a lot of motion. There's a lot of motion coming from that gobbler, and all the other birds, they recognize right away what's going on, and they can pick it out from a long ways away. And those dominant birds, especially, they just don't tolerate it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be unbelievable. I haven't had a chance to use it yet, but I think it's going to be phenomenal. A couple questions that I have for you about the mating motion, Jake. From a mechanic standpoint, can the motion, Jake, be used without the hen? In other words, can the stake be staked in the ground and it have motion without the hen being underneath it?
Yes.
That's the first question.
Yes, it can.
Okay, so if you had tall grass or something, and say you were running and gunning and you didn't have time or what have you, I believe, and I'm curious your thoughts, that you still could get that motion and get the same sense, and have good reaction. Obviously, the mating hen beneath it adds to it when they get closer and, walk up to it. But don't you agree that just that motion itself and just the body position that Dave came up with is going to be a game changer?
Absolutely. The motion itself implies that there is most likely a hen
getting bred
underneath that bird. And you actually, Jay, you'll see in the wild quite often birds that will be doing the dance without a partner.
Yep, right on the ground.
Yeah, yep, just literally standing on the ground.
I have video of that, actually. Yeah.
Yep. So,
but talk about the mechanics of so people can kind of understand it. Obviously, go to DaveSmithDecoys.com and you can see pictures of it. But you lay the hen down. The stake obviously is going to go through that hen, I would assume, and then the jake goes on top.
That's correct. So the first thing you want to do is you want to lay your pull cord out. It's a pull cord operated motion system. You want to lay your pull cord out on the ground. You want to stake it to the ground. The cord includes a spool and 2 eye screws, and so you want to sink those eye screws into the ground, roughly 3 feet apart. The hen then goes on top of the cord, and there's a little tunnel cut on the underside of her belly, and that straddles the cord. And at the one end of the line, there is a swivel that will actually attach to an eyelet in the back, the end of the tail of the jake. So first you want to put your cord down, stake the eye screws into the ground, lay your mating hen down over the cord, and then there's a hole drilled in the back, the lower back of the hen. You want to then insert the stake down through her back and down into the ground, and then you load the jake on top of it and hook that swivel up to the tail on the jake, and then run your cord back to your blind.
And then just by pulling the cord, so if the cord is staked down, in other words, it's fairly taut to the ground, then as you pull, it just bounces that Jake's tail, if you will, up and down, and it gives it that breeding motion. And that's where if a bird is out there and can see your spread, and they're kind of looking, you just give it a little. I mean, I don't think it's going to take very much. Just give it a little pull, and it get that Jake kind of bouncing a little bit, and I think you're going to have an immediate reaction of gobblers, basically running. And I've seen it in the wild. We actually, Brad, before you guys came up with this, I would take your submissive hen and literally stake the Jake right by it, in essence, and got some great video last year of birds. And my idea was get that Jake by that breeding hen. As soon as they see the Jake, then they look down and see the submissive hen laying down there. And now you guys have taken it a step further and added that motion. I think it's going to be unbelievable.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely right. And that was the idea behind the breeding pair, which was the Jake and the submissive hen, included as a set. We would lay the submissive hen down on the ground in close proximity to the Jake. He would be facing her from the rear, and it was to give the appearance of a Jake who was just about to climb up on top of a receptive hen. Now he's taken it a step further, and he's actually standing on top of her. And
right.
And you're absolutely right as far as not needing a whole lot of motion. Just a little tug on that cord is going to get the bird's attention. And really, once they see the decoy, a little more motion can't hurt. But I tell you what, a lot of it, Jay, is actually in the profile of that decoy. The Jake has a big hump in his back, and his tail is down low. I mean, they've really nailed the pose.
Well, and the wings, just to me, the wings being down, it's exactly, I mean, I went back and looked at my videos, and it's like, that's the exact pose with the, it's kind of humped up, if you will, and the wings are down. I mean, it's the exact pose. And so I think, honestly, I think there's going to be guys that are going to tell you after the season that, they didn't even have time to pull it, but the gobbler came within distance, saw the hump in his back, and knew exactly. And, obviously the guys that give it a little motion are going to, probably have them just get run over. But I think you're also, just from the pose alone, going to have some phenomenal response. Let's branch out here and talk a little bit about the white-faced strutter and the white-faced Jake. I am also scheduled to have Matt Winters from Kansas, and I believe he had a little bit of input with you guys on the white-faced strutter. Talk a little bit about that add to the decoy line this year and your thoughts behind that. And if you have personally have had a chance to use, I mean, obviously turkey season hasn't started yet in most states, but talk a little bit about that white-faced strutter and white-faced Jake.
Sure. Well, I really never put a whole lot of thought myself, and I don't want to speak for Dave, but I don't think he really had either, into the idea of painting either the strutter or the Jake, with a white face. But then this crazy guy from Kansas called us up, Matt Winters, and he kept saying, "Man, you gotta make me a white-faced strutter. You gotta make me a white-faced strutter." And so eventually we caved in and we sent him one, and man, he just started.
You guys are probably thinking, this guy's a pain in our butt. Why are we even doing this? So let's just do it so he stops calling.
He just started.
No comment.
All
right?
these. What's that?
No comment, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no. And Matt's a great guy. He's super into turkey hunting, and he's a really high energy kind of guy. He's the kind of guy, he drinks like 2 or 3 rock stars a day.
Just gets fired up. I like it.
He gets super fired up like nobody I've ever met before. But he's a great guy and a super avid turkey hunter, and he wanted a white-faced strutter, and we made him one, and next thing you know, he's just sending us all these hero shots of, him and his clients. He guides down in Kansas. Him and his clients with one longbeard after another, and I believe by the end of that first season, he'd racked up like something crazy, like 60 or 70 birds over that decoy. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And and this would have been, let's see, it's spring of 18. No, this would have been spring of 16. And so last spring, Dave and I thought, well, let's try a couple ourselves and see what happens. So I hunted all of spring of 2017 over a white-faced strutter, and I was blown away. I had the best season to date using the Strutter decoy, and was it all because of the white-faced paint job on that decoy? I couldn't say for sure. There's still a lot of debate as far as what exactly is the white-faced strutter saying. What is he conveying to other birds? Because turkeys, they communicate mostly nonverbal, and so there's a lot that can be said for a bird's attitude based on its coloration in its head and its body posture. And, to be honest, I don't know if anybody can say for sure what a gobbler is conveying when his head goes white, but I can tell you this much: the other gobblers don't like it. That's about all I can say for sure.
I can't wait to try it this year, and I'm excited to have Matt on the podcast. I'm actually scheduled to have him on in the morning, so it's going to be fun to have these episodes running close to each other and get his take on it as well. Let's see, not last season, but the season before, you guys I had been asking for, because I hunt Merriams and Goulds, and you guys actually did some more white on the hens and the jakes for me, and I was able to take them down and had great response. And again, I'm not saying that I had better response because the tail feathers on the jake and on the hens were more white. I will tell you, it looked more natural. For the Goulds have a ton of white on them, and our Merriams do as well. I'm wondering, are you still running those whiter color schemes, or was that something you just did kind of for that year? I still have a handful of them that have white color, and I know if every customer you had started asking for custom stuff, it would get time consuming. But was there any feedback with some of your Western guys on Merriams and such that they liked that color scheme?
Well, we only did it for you, Jay, because we admire you and think you're so cool.
Oh, shut up.
No, yeah, absolutely. There's been quite a few requests over the years for Merriam and Gould's paint jobs, and we're certainly willing to accommodate it at no extra charge. You have to order direct from us in order to get the custom paint job.
You have to order 100 in order to get the custom paint job, but if you order under 100, if you order 99 or less, you don't get it. Go to DaveSmithDecoys.com and get them now. No, I just thought that was pretty cool, and I still use them. And my hunters comment, some of the hens are different colors, and they're like, "Man, that one looks," and I'm like, "Yeah, because it's got more white on it," and those guys put it on there. But it's pretty neat that you guys can take some feedback from a guy like Matt and come out with the white-faced strutter. I'm super excited to see all the customer feedback from across the country and get people's opinion. I'm always curious of what people perceive and what they think, and it'll be interesting to see if they feel that the white-face is outperforming the regular strutter. And it's going to be exciting to see how that shakes out.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
Brad, I want to talk a little bit about your spring coming up. Do you have big plans to go, multiple states or anything? Are you going to hunt your backyard right there in Oregon, or what do you have planned for turkey hunting yourself?
My plans for this upcoming spring are to hunt locally. I like to hunt throughout Oregon, both east and west. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the terrain here, but essentially the western third of the state is really lush and green, where it rains all the time, and that area is Rios. And the central and eastern portion of the state, where it's higher elevation and drier climate, you get a mixture of Rios and Merriams there, and I tend to hunt the areas where we get into more Merriams. Some of the higher elevation ponderosa pine forests reminds me a lot of the Black Hills in South Dakota. So, unfortunately, with my schedule and this being a pretty insanely busy spring in terms of order volume, I will not be going out of state. But I love hunting here in Oregon, eastern Oregon.
You guys have phenomenal turkey hunting, don't you?
We do.
Yeah.
It's certainly...
As a state, Oregon as a state, it's a pretty dang good state for turkey hunting. Yeah.
We don't have the highest population of turkeys, but there are, there's great opportunities to go out after them. And there's plenty of public opportunities if a guy wants to head east, and there's opportunities if a guy wants to knock on doors and chase these west side Rios too. So it's a lot of fun. It's two different styles of hunts, really.
Well, that's awesome. Mutual friend Casey Brooks keeps wanting me to get up there to that northwest country and do some hunting, and I'm usually pretty tied up with my Gould's turkey hunts and some of the Merriams and other states that I hunt and stuff. But someday I'll get up there and do some hunting. Brad, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been a good one. I want to remind the listeners, I'll link it up in the show notes. Make sure to go to DaveSmithDecoys.com. You can also follow these guys on Instagram, Dave Smith Decoys, and Facebook, I believe, for sure Instagram. And I just, do you have any final thoughts or concluding thoughts or anything that we didn't cover in the podcast that you want the listeners to know, or any concluding thoughts?
Well, I'd like to say, first and foremost, we do have a Facebook page, and that is a great way to contact us and give us your feedback. We love input. We love ideas for what you want to see next. So that anything is possible. We didn't think we'd be making turkey decoys 10 years ago, and now it's our best-selling line by far. So we love to hear from our customers. Facebook and Instagram are a great way to get a hold of us and tell us what you like, what you don't like, and what you want to see us do next.
Yeah, and also I imagine that you encourage customers to send in their photos. Send them to you guys. You guys want to see the success photos of the decoys in the photos and such. Is there a specific place where they can send those?
Yeah.
Or is that through the website?
Through the website is, there's a link, and I wish I knew it off the top of my head.
I'm actually looking at it here on your website. If they go to your website and there's a place where they can submit photos, I'm looking at it right here. So DaveSmithDecoys.com, guys, go and you can submit these photos. and it's fun to see every once in a while the social media. You guys are posting not only your content from corporate headquarters, if you will, but you're also posting customers' photos. So that's pretty neat that people are getting to be featured on your social media site. So, Brad, thanks for coming on and sharing with us. We've had fun today, and I just commend you guys on the incredible work, solid work that you guys do with the decoys. I know that's what I use, and I've used them and beat them up over the years, and they're still keep right on ticking. So congratulations for finding a formula to make super durable decoys, and keep up all the great work. Can't wait to see this motion Jake and what the white face strutter. There's just so much going on this year that's going to be exciting to see. The smiles on the customers' faces for sure, because I know I'm going to have a smile on my face.
All right. Well, yeah. Keep in touch, buddy, and thanks for having me. Let me know how your season goes, and yeah, we appreciate your support and your time for sure.
All right, give Dave a punch in the arm, and one of these days we'll rope him and tie him down and make him come on here and say a few words as well.
Okay, that sounds great. And do me a favor, tomorrow morning when you talk to Matt Winters, ask him if he's had his purple drank yet.
Okay, that'll be the first question I ask him.
Okay.
All right, buddy. Good. Take care. God bless.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
You too. Thanks.
Bye.